I would be lying if I said the release I anticipated the most this month was something other than Sly Cooper. Yeah, that's right, Sly Cooper's back, bitches! And in the best possible way, too. The original PS2 Sly Cooper. Since a lot of you probably didn't even know about this, it was matter-of-factly announced on social media, so I figured I'd make a video on it and go over some basic facts. Sly Cooper is back for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Sony is now bringing PS2 classics to their monthly updated digital catalog. For the PS2 classics launch, you've got Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, Tomb Raider Legend, and Star Wars Clone Wars. If you have a PS Premium account, which I do, you can download all of these games for free. If not, Sly Cooper is $10. A very decent asking price for such a badass game. Although Tomb Raider Legend is probably better on every other platform available. I have it on Steam, for example. And I don't know anything about that Clone Wars game, but we're here to assess this version of Sly Cooper. Speaking as someone who's played this game more times than any mortal really should have. Also, this video is going to assume you know what Sly Cooper is. I'm not going to answer the basic FAQs about that if you don't. Just see my many other Sly Cooper videos for more information on what the game is, and my in-depth thoughts on it. Some more basic FAQs to address before going over it, though. You might wonder how this differs from the Sly collection you can find in the PlayStation Store. The answer is that the Sly collection you can get on PS5 is the 2010 remastered trilogy for PlayStation 3 that you can play via streaming on PS4 and 5. For the average person with a standard internet connection, it doesn't run very well and is not stable from my experience. This new version is not a native port of Sly, this is a new PS2 emulator that Sony has worked on alongside implicit conversions. Some staff there had even worked on the PS2 emulator for PC called PCSX2. The fact it was a new emulator had me very excited to try it out because Sony has tried their hand at PS2 emulation in the past and the results with the Jak and Daxter games on PS4 were woeful. Bad controls and graphical glitches were rampant in those versions. See the ports section of my Jak X video for the full rundown, or any number of other YouTube videos on it. But yeah, I was really hoping this version would be a great way for players on current consoles to experience Sly Cooper. The question is, was it? Well, let's go over it. This is an emulation of the PS2 original, which means it comes with all the ups and downs of that experience. If you're someone who preferred the HD widescreen gameplay of the 2010 remaster, you aren't going to get it here. This is the original Sly Cooper, how it was on PS2. There are flaws that come with that. For example, the original 3 Sly games on PS2 had a ghosting effect whenever anything moved, which is fully emulated here, as you'd expect. And it has a 4:3 aspect ratio because the original Sly trilogy didn't have widescreen on PS2. If you're someone who doesn't like that fact, it might be another drawback. Personally, it's not a bother. I'm a bit of a Sly purist, so I always play the games on PS2 or PCSX2 whenever I revisit them. The HD collection has many drawbacks, like how the silhouette effect from the intro wasn't present in the HD version, or how they removed bonus content. In the original game, when you'd beat the time trials for a level, you were rewarded with designer's commentary for that stage, seeing the team talk about the level and how it evolved from concept to final product. For some reason, this was removed in the 2010 edition of Sly Cooper. In the 2024 release, it's all here and accounted for. The HD collection version also had a slightly rearranged soundtrack by the same composer as the OG game. Which one you like more is a matter of preference, but in the Ms. Ruby boss fight, the slightly changed game speed and different music timing altered the boss fight, which made it more difficult. And this was already a pretty well-known part amongst Sly fans, often being cited as the hardest segment in the entire trilogy well before there even was an HD collection. See, I've been playing this game for the better part of 20 years and I still die to it all the time. But this new emulator does come with some extras for those who struggle with it. The emulator has save states, so if you know you're about to play a challenging section, you can save your spot and reload it as many times as you may need. I never did that because I don't think this game is that hard. However, another nifty function is the rewind feature. You can directly go backward in gameplay a few seconds or minutes and redo something you failed at, like the Miss Ruby boss fight. If you like to cheese games in their harder segments, this is a feature for you. Though the rewind feature is not on the PlayStation 4. Perhaps it would have made the console explode, I don't know. But that is trouble because I sampled the game on PS4 and it seems that the game speed is upped on PlayStation 4 for reasons beyond me, which makes the Ms. Ruby boss fight even more difficult. But I cleared it in a few tries. Just something to note for anyone wanting to play it on PS4. Common to the emulator on both consoles is the settings menu. On both the DualShock 4 and the DualSense controllers, the left and right sides of the touchpad function as the PS2 controller's start and select button. The PS4 and 5's actual start button accesses the emulator menu. Here you can switch between the NTSC version, Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, or the PAL version, Sly Raccoon. Thankfully, you can fully rebind the controls too. The main actions feel great in the default button layout, but in the original Sly 1 you could not invert the camera controls, which bugs a lot of people, so the inversion can be changed in the options menu, which is great. Visually, you have a couple of options to pick from. The default setting was the one you see in this footage. The colors were balanced how they were in the original version, so I thought it was the best one to use. The modern visual setting just made the colors darker, so I didn't see the value in picking this. I thought the arcade filters looked pretty good though. They made the jagged edges in the game much less noticeable, but since I figured most wouldn't want to look at that for an entire video, I just opted to pick the default. There was also the enhancement option, but I didn't notice much of a difference with this one way or another. If I was in charge of this emulator, I would put a few more options in here, like the aspect ratio. I just said I don't mind it being 4:3, but I would have gone beyond the one option that is here. For example, some people would probably like to stretch the image to fill the screen horizontally. I don't like how it distorts the picture, but some would prefer that to fill the screen. For me, I thought the image was too wide actually, even though it didn't fill the screen. If you look at my PS2 or PCSX2 footage, you can see the image is much skinnier, which I prefer. If we could get the option to pick between these three modes, that would be great. I liked the arcade filters, but I think it would be nice if there was a native resolution perfect pixel option. If you've seen any of my videos, you'd know I'm fond of this option for pretty much every retro console, even with 3D graphics. The way the game looks on the PS4 and 5 is definitely good enough, and it looks great in gameplay. However, it is using this softening filter that is pretty noticeable on text, especially because the subtitles will be blurry and look weird in motion. Having an option for the native resolution would be nice. If you play on the PC emulator, you can actually get a 4K upscale, which is definitely the best option. That's not how it works on this console emulator, and the softening filter is the middle ground they picked between having it be the actual native resolution on screen and bumping that native resolution up. I'm not the most technical guy regarding terminology, so I don't claim to have any authority or knowledge on how the process works or what the right terms are. I just hope you understand what I'm trying to say. My real point here is that I think this is more than good enough. But if I were in charge of the emulator, I'd include more options to ensure it's the definitive way to play for everyone. But since I'm on the subject of visuals, now would be a good time to mention that for most of the game I didn't notice any visual bugs. You'd hope not in an emulator, but it's important to say because you never know. Unfortunately, the one visual bug I caught was pretty massive. During the mission Burning Rubber from episode 5, the one where you play as Murray in the van driving over 60 computers, the entire van and Murray will sometimes just turn solid black like it's that one cutscene from the HD version of Jak 2. The same goes for the Fire Slug enemies. That came pretty out of nowhere, but I'm glad I played the whole game to catch it. I've never seen that happen in any previous version of Sly 1, but like I said, it was the only visual bug I noticed. If you like replayability, you're in luck though. The PS4 and 5 version of Sly 1 feature their own trophy list, separate from the one it had on PS3 and PS Vita, many of which are more challenging than the previous list. So you can really get the most out of the game beyond fully completing it. Speaking of which, I 100%ed it on PS5 for this video and had a lot of fun with the time trials. All of Sly's sequels were really easy games, and the first one was meant to be a simple game, so it's always fun to play these parts that require such nail-biting precision. The reward for completing them is the behind-the-scenes video. But there is one issue in that the compilation of Sly 1's commercials didn't unlock when getting 100%, which they're supposed to. So I hope that gets fixed too, unless there are rights issues with those, I don't know. At the end of the day, I was pretty pleased with this. As the video stated, there are issues here that could be patched out and features I'd like to see as the emulator grows with more games added, but this was a pretty cool release for one of the first ones. I think it's a great way to revisit Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus for those who have never played it, for those who haven't played it in a long time, and those who have played it far too many times, and everyone in between. It's not perfect, but it's really good. And for me, it was just really nice to be able to boot up a new Sly Cooper release on a modern PlayStation console. The Sly Cooper trilogy stands tall as a format of my gaming tastes. I really wouldn't be here doing this without those games. So it's nice to see Sly back, even if just re-releasing the classic first game, which I could replay and enjoy any day of the week. The last time there was a Sly release of any kind was 10 years ago when the trilogy came out on PS Vita, which of course, I own. I hope we get Sly 2 and Sly 3 added to the PS4 and PS5 soon. I would enjoy the hell out of that. And if we all buy it and give it good ratings, hey, maybe there even might be a reboot or a trilogy remake. Although I'm far more than content never getting a new Sly game again. Least of all Sly 5, that shit would be dead on arrival. But before I even get myself started, yeah, any Sly Cooper fan should buy this and hope to see the other 2 games come out in modern consoles as well. Especially those who have spent years bitching about these obscure, never really that popular IPs not receiving an endless amount of sequels as the creators move on to greater heights. This might show that many still love Sly and the gang. But yeah, that was a quick video, but I wanted to spread some love for Sly and raise awareness for this release for those who might not have known it was out. The regularly scheduled Mega Man 8 retrospective will release next week. Hope people are looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I'll close by saying what I always do. If you made it this far into the video, you've seen everything. Go outside.